Okay, so just want to give you a basic overview of Macs, the work environment, and a few basic objects so we can get started doing some programming on Wednesday. So, let's talk today in class. Max is a visual programming language. It uses an object metaphor for everything it does, connects those objects with patch cords. Um, the environment, when you call up Max, we have our windows and we have a patcher window. The patcher window is your file. It just refers to everything in Max as a patcher. New patcher, uh, saving, whatever you do, this is your type of file that you do. What I want to start first off is to make sure we go through some options. I like to get my programs, my applications set up the same way or in a way that I think is most usable. So a couple things that I like to do. You won't always find the segmented patch cords selected by default, but I think this is pretty important for creating some clean visual layouts of your patches. So segmented patch cords, we'll explain them later. Um, I also like help in locked patchers. You don't necessarily have to worry about that yet. Um, Over here in the general preferences, I like to go into patching. I do like to have assistance bubbles. You can, and I don't like curved patch cords. That's just me. But I'll show you some in class what the difference is, and you can experience around with this. There also is a little patch cord wiggle when you connect patch cords that just kind of shows you things have been connected. It's a little animation. I think it goes on a little bit long in the default. I've turned it down to 16 milliseconds. Other than that, we can just kind of get started. So when you're looking at the patcher window, um, so our work is going to go on in here. One of the first things to look at is down here in the lower left corner is a lock and unlock. It's a lock icon. Patchers need to be unlocked so you can edit them, add objects, uh, manipulate those objects. Locked lets you run the patcher without accidentally deleting things or moving objects around. You can also do this by holding the command key down and clicking on the patcher canvas. So that will unlock or lock depending on what um, state you're in. So we'll work with that. If we're going to add objects, we've got an object palette up here at the top. We'll leave this along at the left and the bottom for now. We'll leave it alone. We will go over here to the right and open up the Max console. If you've dealt with any type of programming language before, standard I/O. If a mistake happens, where's it going to print the error message? Or if I ask it to print something, where's that going to go to by default? It's going to go into this console window. So it's useful, especially at the beginning, to have that open. I don't always have it open in class because smaller screen size with projection makes real estate more important, but this is good to have open. So we're going to leave that open. And then work a little bit, go back to the palette, um, and talk a little bit of objects. Objects in Max. Everything's an object, at least in terms of its metaphor, whether it's a real uh, programming object in the programming sense, like an object oriented. I don't want to worry about that. But we have objects, which if I click will bring over a text box, and I can type an object name like, well, I showed you node in today. Hit return, and I have that object. If it's a real object, it will usually have inlets and outlets that appear. Also, no error message. I can always type a new object in by text by using the N key. If it's not a real object, let's say I'll type one I know is not right. You'll see the object highlights in a kind of orange. And over here in bright red, new object, no play, no such object. You can delete that. It's useful if you've corrected an error to go ahead and clear the console so you're not continually looking at the red. You have other types of objects in Max, message. So objects receive messages, perform some computation, output messages. The message object is a special type. It's for sending a constant message like on. And then let's type in print, connect the patch cord to the object. And so on just sends the message on to the print object, and the print object prints it out. Comments are always useful. And again, it's one of those things that I will tend to forget to do in class, but I will clean up my patches usually um, after class. This is a comment. You can put it anywhere. When you lock the patch, its bounding box goes away unless you specify. You have what are some user interface objects like toggles, buttons, numbers, sliders, and dials, and then Max for Live objects if you have the Max for Live version or Ableton Live. Max for Live objects work in Max in the standard version that we're using. They are the primary objects we use in Max for Live if you're doing programming in that regard. So what we're going to work with at the first are the objects that let us deal with MIDI messages. Now, MIDI messages, I posted a review. The channel messages, voice channel messages are the ones that we're working with, things like note, on and off, aftertouch, whether it's polyphonic or by channel, control changes, program changes, and pitch bend. So we have objects that correspond to all of those MIDI messages. So I have note in, and I have the corresponding, typing in for note out. And just resizing things to show, but if I connect patch cords, and if I hover, you can see what I'm dealing with: a pitch, velocity, and MIDI channel. If I lock the patch, I can double click on note out and see that it's sending to the audio unit synth that comes with the Macintosh. And now if I play a note, it will play. I'm going to use my Option key so I can drag across patch cords and insert some number boxes. Do it from the menu there. You can also type the letter I and add another one. And or also do an Option drag to make a copy. And now you can see what I'm doing when I play a note in and out. Middle C, on, off. Just the velocity of 0 is a note off. I can do that with the patch locked or unlocked. I'm unlocked at this point. And I can play notes. Lock the patch, same thing. Can unlock to add. So I mentioned some of the other MIDI messages, and just to show you a few, we can do some more things on Wednesday, but just show you a few like I showed you in class. Program out, which will send a patch change to the synthesizer. I'll use another number box, and we'll make a lot of use of numbers. MIDI is basically a way of formatting numbers as arguments to MIDI messages. So in this case, if I'm tired of the grand piano sound, I can type in another number. That becomes my program out message to the synth, and I can get some brass-like sounding instrument. Unlock, do another control out, and the controller number 1, which corresponds to the mod wheel usually. And you may be noticing that objects are appearing at my cursor. So if I type an in for a new object, it appears at my cursor. And then I can type whatever I want. So control N1 is looking for the mod wheel and sending that information out. Actually do not need yeah, I do need is Control Alt 1. So it's sending the controller, continuous controller change message. And that will change vibrato depth. Does it play it? And that's a basic little way to get started. I'll add up another video to show you just a little bit more we can do, so they're not just echoing commands that are doing this, but this is our starting point for now. Thanks. See you next time.